You might not be able to name it clearly, but you can feel it. A quiet weight that follows you through the day. It's there when you wake up, before anything has happened. It's there in small pauses, when the noise of life drops and your own mind fills the space. Not a dramatic pain, just a constant pressure. A sense that something inside you is always tense, always watching, always bracing for what might go wrong. This is what it feels like to live inside a negative mind. Not loud despair, but a steady hum of unease. Thoughts that repeat themselves like a tired song. Memories that surface without being invited. Conversations replayed, moments questioned, futures imagined and judged before they arrive. Even in silence, the mind does not rest. It scans, compares, criticizes. And over time, this becomes exhausting. You may have learned to function this way, to smile, to work, to keep moving. From the outside, everything can look fine, but inside, it feels like carrying a heavy bag you never set down. You don't always notice it anymore. It has been there so long that it feels like part of you. And because of that, you may have quietly assumed something is wrong with you, that you are too sensitive, too anxious, too broken in some subtle, unfixable way. But pause here for a moment. Just notice what it feels like to be reading these words. Notice the body, the breath, the fact that something in you is listening. This alone already tells a different story. What you are experiencing is not a personal failure. It is not a flaw in your character. It is a conditioned state of awareness, a mind that has learned to stay alert, to protect, to predict, to control. Like a river that has been flowing in the same direction for years, carving the same path again and again until it feels inevitable. The problem is not that thoughts appear. The problem is that you are inside them without space, like being caught in a storm while believing you are the storm itself. Every thought feels urgent because it feels like you. Every emotion feels overwhelming because there is no distance from it. Yet even now, something quieter is present. There is an observer behind the noise, a still point behind the movement. You may not feel it clearly yet, but it is already here. It is the part of you that notices the weight, that senses the exhaustion, that longs for a different way of being without knowing how to reach it. This chapter is not here to fix you. It is here to let you be seen, to gently name what you've been carrying without trying to take it away. Because awareness begins not with solutions, it begins with honesty, with seeing what is actually here, without judgment, without force. And as you start to see this inner weight instead of being lost inside it, something subtle begins to shift. Not relief, not peace yet, just a small opening, a crack of light, the realization that the struggle itself can be observed. And where observation begins, a different relationship with the mind quietly becomes possible. At some point, you may have noticed that the mind doesn't just produce thoughts, it argues with them. One thought says you should relax, another warns you that something is wrong. One part of you wants rest, another insists you must stay alert. Even when nothing is happening, there is movement inside, like waves colliding in opposite directions, and you are caught in the middle of it, feeling pulled, stretched, tired. This is how the mind becomes a battlefield, not because life is attacking you, but because different thoughts are fighting for control. Each one sounds convincing in its own moment. Each one feels urgent, and because they arise inside you, they feel personal. It can seem as if you are divided, as if peace and tension are two sides of who you are. You may notice how often the mind resists what is already here. A feeling appears, and another thought immediately tries to push it away. A memory surfaces, and the mind argues with it, wishing it had gone differently. A future possibility appears, and the mind rushes ahead, rehearsing outcomes that haven't arrived. Very little is allowed to simply be. Everything is questioned, corrected, or controlled. This resistance creates friction, like rowing upstream against a strong current, even when the water itself is calm. The exhaustion you feel does not come from the thoughts alone, but from the effort of fighting them, from the constant attempt to fix, escape, or replace inner experiences instead of letting them pass. There is often a quiet sadness in realizing this, the recognition that so much energy has been spent in an inner war you never consciously chose. You may have believed that this struggle was necessary, that vigilance keeps you safe, that criticism keeps you improving, that replaying the past prevents future mistakes. But look closely. Has this battle truly brought peace? Notice how the body responds when the mind is at war. The shoulders tighten, the breath shortens, the chest feels heavy or closed. Even moments that could be simple are filled with tension. Life is filtered through judgment before it is fully felt. And yet, something important is happening as you read this. You are noticing the battle. You are not fully inside it in this moment. There is a slight step back, a small distance, like standing on a hill and watching a storm move through the valley below, instead of being caught in the rain. This is where awareness changes the relationship, not by choosing sides, not by silencing the mind, but by seeing the conflict itself. Seeing how thought argues with thought, how resistance feeds resistance, how the mind tightens around its own activity. You are not required to resolve this battle right now. You are not asked to make the mind peaceful. Simply to notice how often it fights itself and how that fight feels in you. Awareness does not take sides, it observes, like a mirror that reflects without preference, like light that reveals without pushing anything away. As this observation deepens, something subtle becomes clear. The conflict is made of thoughts, and thoughts arise, clash, and fade within something larger, something quieter. You may not know what to call it yet, but you can sense it as the space in which the battle appears. And if there is space to notice the war, then perhaps you are not the war itself. Perhaps you are the one who has been watching all along, waiting to be recognized. There is a voice in your mind that rarely pauses. It speaks in the background while you work, while you rest, even while you are doing nothing at all. Sometimes it sounds practical, sometimes critical, sometimes concerned. It comments on what you did, what you should have done, and what might happen next. And because it has been there so long, you may not even question it. You may simply assume it is you. This voice feels intimate. It knows your history. It uses familiar language. It speaks in your own tone. That is why it carries so much authority. When it judges, it feels like truth. When it worries, it feels like foresight. When it compares, it feels like self-awareness. Yet notice how rarely this voice is gentle, how often it pushes, warns, corrects, or undermines, like a commentator that never leaves the room and never lowers the volume. You might try to argue with it, to replace negative thoughts with better ones, to reason your way into calm. But the voice is clever. It can always respond. One thought challenges it, another defends it. The river keeps flowing, carrying you along with it. Pause for a moment and listen, not to the content of the voice, but to the fact that it is speaking. Notice the sound of thought itself, the way words appear in the mind without effort. You did not plan the last thought before it arrived. You did not choose its tone or timing. It simply surfaced, shaped by memory, habit, and past experience. This noticing creates a subtle shift, like stepping back from a mirror and realizing you are not the reflection. The voice continues, but something else is present now, an awareness that hears it, an observer that does not speak in words. Thoughts move like clouds across the sky.
They form, change shape, and dissolve. The sky does not chase them. It does not argue. It does not try to become clearer by pushing clouds away. It simply allows them to pass. In the same way, peace does not come from silencing the voice or fixing every sentence it speaks. It comes from recognizing the space in which the voice appears, the silence that is already here, listening. You may begin to sense brief gaps, small moments where no thought is demanding your attention. They might last only a second, but they are enough to show you something important. The voice is not constant, and it is not who you are. As this understanding settles, the voice loses some of its grip, not because it disappears, but because it is no longer alone. Awareness has entered